What's up, gamers? We're back with some more modern Magic Mondays over here at NanMan's Nerd Corner. We're going to be doing some modern, well, I guess it's not quite modern Magic Mondays anymore since we are doing Mondays and Thursdays now for gameplay footage. So pretty exciting stuff. We've got Mono Green Tron versus Hardened Scales. So we'll talk a little bit about the decks, kind of go into things, and we have something special planned for you for this episode. If you look down on the little tracker there, you'll notice that there's a little bonus clip at the end of this episode for some legacy gameplay. We've got Elves versus lands, just like a little bit of showcase up of what the decks can do a little bit. So we are going to be showing a little bit of that a little bit later. But Hardened Scales already opening up nicely with kind of the namesake of the deck, which allows you to kind of get an additional +1 counter on your creatures, your lands, all the things that matter in the deck. Big part of it is artifacts. Now, if you are an old school modern player like myself, you were familiar with the deck known as Affinity back in the day. This is kind of the evolution of Affinity. It has evolved into Hardened Scales, just the +1 counter shenanigans. There have been new tools and new stuff that has been printed, but if you remember, back in the day, players would be able to mess around with cards like Arcbound Ravager, using the modular, sacrificing artifacts, and you could be able to do that pure strategy of I'm going to go all in on one creature by sacrificing a bunch of artifacts and manipulating and moving my +1 counters around. That still exists for the Hardened Scales deck. The other aspect of it is we can be able to kind of go wide. We do have access to things like Hangerback Walker. You have things like your Patchwork Automatons to get there, so like you can start playing a lot of creatures. But a Dismember off the bat is great. That's like really what you're kind of hoping for here, to kind of start stripping away one of those pesky Arcbound Ravagers. The list does run like a playset of Walking Ballistas in here as well, but the deck has also evolved too with a newest edition of Agatha's Soul Cauldron. So we'll see, kind of basically giving your creatures the ability to turn into Arcbound Ravagers, to turn into Hangerback Walkers. It just kind of gives the deck a lot more flexibility as the game progresses, and allows you to fight through some hate and be able to come back later in the games where previous versions of the deck would have a much harder time. But we're going to be seeing how our Mono Green Tron player, they do have access to cards like we saw Dismembers in there. One card that is going to be extremely crucial for our Tron player to be able to utilize is our Karn, the Great Creator, because that is that Planeswalker that has that blanket passive ability that says activated abilities of your opponent's artifacts can't be activated. That is kind of the key thing that our Tron player is hoping to draw, in addition to being able to get the additional threats that it might be able to utilize in here. Things like Ugin, not very effective in this matchup here. If you're running it in the main board, that's going to be one of the things you take out for sideboard, but we're not even at sideboard stages. We're in the Resolving an Urza Saga to get out a Zabaz, the Glimmer Wasp. I love the name of this card. Card's really cool. This is like a play set of 4 of that many of the Hardened Scales players are utilizing. You see all this like rules text there at the bottom. Destroy target artifact you control. Give it flying. The flying is very relevant. Also the modular. And it has that bonus of like if a modular trigger ability would put 1 or more counters on a creature you control, that many +1/+1 counters are put on it instead. So that modular is referencing to when the creature would die. It has that modular that would manipulate and move an additional counter. Now, double Arcbound is really scary because now things get in that danger zone of math of saying, oh, I could just die very quickly here with the Hardened Scales out. You're sacrificing artifacts, and Arcbound, of course, has the modular trigger. So, like, this clock that we're presenting here with the Hardened Scales gets really scary really quickly. We have another Urza Saga that's already at 2, so that could mean that we are going to be tutoring up something crazy next turn. Things that we need to be worried about are things like, Pithing Needle coming down, the Ozolith coming down. Many players are testing out that Lava Spur boots to give a creature +1/+0 haste and ward 1. So that's like a nice little addition. Many people are also still utilizing like different other things. Some players run Basilisk Collar, not as often in the main board though. That's often a sideboard thing, but The Shadow Spear is another good one that a lot of players run main board. So let's see. Yeah, it looks like we're going into debating about before damage here. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so that was crazy right there. That just went from, hey, here's a 2-power creature to now we have a 8-power creature, all because both Zabez and the Hardened Scales were there. So Zabaz was like, hey, a modular trigger is going to put a +1 counter. Now you're going to put a second one. But guess what? Hardened Scales is going to increase that as well. Warping Whale there to get a Scion. Like, you were hoping to be able to exile something, but the Hardened Scales prevents us from being able to do that. But just kind of getting stuck there. We saw a lot of the mana rock cycling for that game for our Tron player, but not really drawing into the tools that you need to be able to hit Ancient Stirrings, hit Sylvan Scrying, or even hit like a map or something off that. So tough game one here. Hardened Scales up 1-0. And that's, the speed at which the deck can win and can kind of go and do the thing is really powerful. But, Tron has that ability to kind of go for that speed route as well. Assemble Tron very quickly. Sometimes you're getting in on turn 3. And we've talked about how scary the Karn the Great Creator can be, so we're going to have to see how well that works out. Also, if you're able to get up to the amount of lands you need, you have things like the One Ring to kind of just blanket protect yourself for a turn. So we'll see how things go. Looks like we got 2 lands here for sure. Looks like 2 towers, a couple of mana rocks. Look at how awesome our Tron players' lands are. I'm a big fan of the sign cards. You guys have seen. If you haven't yet, take a look. I posted up on Twitter, as well as there's a short you can watch, as well as on TikTok, so you can see all of the sign cards that I have for my Modern Infect that I'm going with. But there's the Ancient Stirrings. Lots of choices that we can get. The deck is set up that you are always hitting, right? Because it's a colorless spell, so you can be able to get, or colorless, so you can get a land. You can be able to get an artifact. You can get an Eldrazi, right? It's got all that. And we go for the forest here. Basically, just consistency we're looking for with the deck. It could also be related to the pick your poisons that could be coming in for our Tron player. That's kind of like the go-to card that we're seeing so many players run. If you're running green, you're running pick your poison. If you're not yet, you need to be. But we talked about the automaton before. Having the ward ability is a little bit annoying. Ward 2, so like single target stuff is going to be tougher. The other thing is this thing is going to get crazy big, crazy fast. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, put a +1 counter on it. But there's a mine coming up, the nice little cut mine. So that is not a factory error on it. This is like the intentional cuts that some people have been able to do. Like they get a sheet of it and they cut them very specific ways, which is crazy. Crazy cool to be able to see just like these unique twists on how you want to stylize your deck. What do you guys do to stylize your decks? I personally hunt signatures. I know some people are like, I want very specific art, or I'm looking for foils, or I'm looking for Japanese cards for them, or Korean cards, or like whichever foreign cards that you might be able to stumble upon. You find your ways to kind of spice up and make your deck feel unique and feel cool for you. Ooh, that's a nice tutor up here. So Urza Saga going to be searching up, and we'll get access to our Haywire Might here. Oftentimes we're seeing that run main board for players that are running green in type lists like Hardened Scales, Yawgmoth, things along those lines. Really, it's a way to deal with the One Ring. You can pay 1 green and be able to sacrifice Haywire Might and exile target non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment, which kind of works out great. All right, so a slower turn or slower setup here for a Hardened Scales player, but that's going to like really start to set things up nicely. Our artifact was cast, so we get to put a counter on Patchwork Automaton, but Agatha's Soul Cauldron, we've seen the Yawgmoth deck utilize it extremely well, and it's even scarier, I would say, in the Hardened Scales deck because of how good some of these activated abilities are, right? You're running Walking Ballista, you're running Zabaz, you're running Arcbound Ravengers. Like, even with the Haywire Might, right? It's like, I don't think you're really going to hope for to be utilizing that, but like the other ones, definitely for sure. Now, the Ozolith getting added in here is nice because if you start sacrificing your creatures with +1 counters, they go into the Ozolith, and then they can start moving and adjusting. Yeah, players were just kind of making sure the life totals were confirmed and accurate based on what they've got on their life pads compared to what we see here on camera. Okay, so the One Ring. Bam, bam. We've got, of course, access to our Tron is online. Still have 4 mana available to us. One Ring at least blanket and protects us this turn, which is really nice. Shout out to our Hardened Scales player here because I did not know that you could use the Soul Cauldron that way. I'm so used to it just being like, hey, exile a creature from my graveyard and get a +1 counter on stuff. But it actually is just tap, exile target card from a graveyard. So you can start stripping away your opponent's cards and use it as a nice little built-in protection for graveyard-based decks. If, of course, a creature is exiled that way, you put a +1 counter on target creature you control. But the fact that you can start exiling your opponent's stuff, what? That's crazy to me. All right. Tapping. I was like, we're in the tank a little bit, debating about how we want to set up for the next push here. Like, we can't attack, so it's like this is the setup phase. Okay, another patchwork here coming out. Ooh, this is cool. Walking Ballista on 0. So we're gonna get additional counters placed on our patchwork automatons, and casting it on 0 guarantees that it's going to go to the graveyard that we can then utilize Agatha's Soul Cauldron to turn all of our creatures into Walking Ballista. And patchwork is already sitting there at 4, so you're like, okay, there's at least 4 guaranteed damage on there. We'll probably put another +1 counter on the other patchwork at this point. I mean, I guess you could put it on your Haywire Might, but you're keeping the green up just in case. And I think that's kind of where our Hardened Scales players is debating. It's like, do I care about exiling your One Ring now? Like, if you start drawing additional cards, how bad is that going to be for me? And they decide, nope, we don't care that much about it. You can draw a couple of cards. We have mana available to respond if things get too crazy, but you're also not in the position of like a big board wipe type thing because Tron does have access to it, but a lot of it is very specific towards colored permanents, right? When we talked about like Ugin, that's one of the quick ones that you're going to take out. But we're going to start seeing some cycling, activating the One Ring. We're digging, we're searching, trying to find a Karn the Great Creator, trying to find something, because like, if you can get Karn the Great Creator out in this position, yes, you're staring down a very scary board. Okay, so we got maybe we're looking to get rid of it now. I mean, the Tron player can still activate it in response, but getting rid of it and saying, yes, they only draw 1, yes, we can attack them, we're set up for next turn, and they haven't really done anything to progress their game plan. They've kind of delayed, right? That's a lot of what our Tron player is doing. Yep, so we see the activation and response, draw a card. Still have 2 mana available. I don't believe we've played a land yet this turn. Yeah, exiled. Get that little correction in there. So we play another tower here. Have access to 5 mana. Or did we play the last Tron piece this turn? I keep getting off track. No, we didn't. Okay. Another nice signed Tron tower. Urza's tower. So there's 2 mana. Play and cycle it. generate a green mana. Urza Saga is a draw. So we're not getting any of our threats. Pick your poison. Nice. Please sacrifice a artifact. Yeah, what do we care about here? Like, Zabaz, I guess, is the weakest link from what we got. Like, we get to move the one counter onto the Ozolith. We get to modular one counter somewhere else. It could be that debate based on what we have in our hand, too. Like, if we have, like, access to our Arcbound Ravager or something, that, you know, that could be it. So we see some counters going on it. So 2 counters go on the Ozolith. Modular counter will go, looks like, to the Patchworks. All right, so when we go to combat, Ozolith will help us at least move those 2 counters. Shadow Spear, okay, pretty nice. Triggers, these go up. It's a very scary threat. Can't attack this turn because of the One Ring. We still have that blanket effect going. But again, it's like you're staring down this very scary positioning that now, even next turn, if you happen to get Karn the Great Creator, you shut down the activation of things, but you still are staring down, what we got, 6, 11 power, potentially 12, 13, 14. All right, what are we activating now? A second Soul Cauldron, triggering Patchwork. Have this die. Basically, we're just increasing the counters. 6, 11, 12, 13. So we needed one more counter. Do we have a creature? We do have a creature. That's 7 and 7 says yes. Pass turn. I have responses after your upkeep. And we don't have a window to really do something to deal with this. We cannot flash in the One Ring. We have no way to flash in and activate anything to stop this. We didn't get any Karns here, so that was crazy. We just kind of stacked up and built up 2 7/7 creatures. Sorry, 8/8 creatures, but with 7 counters each. And that's the cleanup right there. Hardened Scales able to take it, utilizing Agatha's Soul Cauldron. So 2 different. Oh my gosh, 2 cards away from having Karn, but that's what it's like. Very interesting to see, like, games where Karn is out versus Hardened Scales, and games where, you know, in this case where we never saw Karn, are very, very different. I thought going into it, it might have been like more Tron favored because of just like the ability to shut down most of what the deck is doing, but that was not really the case in here. But okay, so we got a little transition window for those that have stuck around with us. We are shifting into our little legacy gameplay here. So Legacy Elves versus Legacy Lands. Our Hardened Scales player is piloting Legacy Lands for the first time, where both of these decks belong to the Tron player, and just basically saying, hey, Legacy's a great format, let's play it and learn about it and see what happens, kind of thing. So we're going to be watching it and seeing what these players go. There'll be, I think we turned the volume up slightly, so you might be able to hear a little bit more discussions for things here. But let me know if you guys want to see more Legacy gameplay and stuff, because there are a couple players at the shop who have Legacy decks, so we can maybe do some sprinklings here and there as bonus episodes, especially if we are going to continue to do 2 episodes a week, one Monday and one on Thursday.
Sure. I'll play Yavimaya,
Yeah, but my.
and then I will pass.
So no turn one plays, but Yavimaya, the Tron player is like, or Elves player in this case is like, hey, if you're just playing a Yavimaya and passing, that's probably not a keepable or good hand. All right, Allosaurus Shepherd. So if you guys have played or seen modern Elves, Legacy Elves is very similar, but it is much faster and more explosive, and you get access to a few additional tools there. Burn of the Grove Willows here. Works out great when you're doing Punishing Fire, but there's an exploration, so that's nice. Ah, okay, Beseiju. There it is. Punishing Fire, of course, banned in Modern, but legal in Legacy. Because of this little shenanigans that you can do with Grove of the Burn Willows to gain a life, you're able to start returning Punishing Fire from your graveyard to your hand. So you get that recurring 2 damage, which works out very well against an elf deck that is like, hey, here's all my like 1 toughness creatures. Allosaurus Shepherd and Nettle Sentinel. Nettle Sentinel, of course, works well with that little bit of combo if you're doing your elf shenanigans where you can just start tapping it, generating green mana, using it to cast stuff. All right, so they're going through and explaining how Punishing Fire, drawing and gaining life.
Awesome. Cool. I'll draw. Oh boy.
So, oh boy, we're seeing some powerful cards here. Of course, with the Mox Diamond, bit of an expensive one. You know, it's a little expensive of a card, but we are going to be discarding land card. So now we've got kind of a nice little mana rock here. Nice. Okay, so the goal, as you're seeing here, is like we don't necessarily care that much about getting the Mazavith back. I mean, it helps us to kind of blanket and protect us from like an attack, but really we care about getting the Life of the Loam in the graveyard and starting to dredge. And a Pithing Needle doing Allosaurus Shepherd, which is pretty nice. Like, if you guys are familiar with like the way that one of the ways that elves can power up and win is generate a lot of mana using things like Gaia's Cradle, use Allosaurus Shepherd, and then start turning them into a bunch of 5/5s and start swinging in and you know, go wide with a nice clock.
Because I don't understand what's happening right now. I'm just excited there's Legacy. This is also on camera for Nan. I play Elvish Visionary.
All right, Elvish Visionary. Let's draw a card. Just nice little, hey, let's keep digging a little bit.
I'm not saying it's wrong.
Okay, so they're going through and explaining the dangers of Nettle Sentinel. Really, it's like it combos extremely well, or has, it's not necessarily combo, but it synergizes extremely well with the Heritage Druid. Tap 3 untapped elves, right? Generate 3 green mana. So you usually have Nettle Sentinel be one of those 3 elves. So then you generate 3 green, you play an elf, and then good to go. Keep untapping it. But look at this. So now we've got 2 crop rotates thrown into the graveyard. No real hits. We're not really hoping for, or we didn't get anything that we were hoping for. Like, our hope is to start getting some lands back in there that we can be able to grab and use Life of the Loam to get back. So now it's like, okay, what do we shoot here? I feel like Nettle Sentinel's the choice to be able to start Punishing Fire here. Yes, there are ways to return elves to your hand, and bouncing and recasting Visionary can be annoying, but it's like if they're spending their resources to do that, that means they're digging and they don't have what they need. So, oh yeah, so now the little discussion, hey, you know, if you had a wasteland or something, you could just lock me out from being able to have lands. which, you know, is annoying, but that's legacy for you. All right, we're starting to see a lot of tools start to appear in our elf player's hand. Let's see which one he's going to deploy. Like, we've got the Quirion Ranger. I think we also got to see... Oh, we'll do a little attackies.
I will Mazavith your
Do another Mazavith here.
and then I will Punishing Fire Nettle Sentinel.
There we go. There's the Punishing Fire on the Nettle Sentinel. So we'll take one.
I don't know if that was the right move, but
Not bad. I might have, just 'cause I know like this deck pretty well, I might have killed something earlier. Like if I had a turn where I did some dumb shit, like having more creature cells needed. I'm getting kind of screwed right now, so.
okay.
He says, I'm getting kind of mana screwed right now. So there we go. All right. Quirion Ranger, as well as our Wirewood Symbiote. So these are what we're talking about. They don't necessarily combo together, but they are like engines for you to start doing dumb stuff.
I'll grab these.
Oh, that's the Life of the Loam that we want to hit.
I will
So, Thespian Sage, Dark Depth combo in the graveyard. Get them back with Life of the Loam.
yeah, I see how this deck
Yeah, the dredging works out really well for this deck.
depths.
There's the Dark Depths coming down.
I will play a Thespian Sage.
Thespian Sage. So now we can pay the 2. It becomes a copy of Dark Depths. You will have to sacrifice both copies because the legend rule applies. You say Dark Depths, the one with all those counters that are on it, those ice counters, disappears because we say get rid of it. And then the other one that's there that you keep has 0 counters on it. And it goes, ba-bum-ba-ba, you are now a 2020 flying indestructible Merilage. And presenting a very scary attack next turn. So now it's up for our legacy player to try to work through
Can I
what they do.
these two together?
They don't combo with each other. They just.
Wait, no. I dredged off of Life from the Loam and got Thespian Sage and Dark Depths.
Jeremy, I'll buy everything else for Doomsday outside the duels. If you'll just let me a place at a underground seas, I'll play with you whenever.
Return a forest to control 3 times, yeah, tap for a creature. Turn elf and return to
All right, so Wirewood Symbiote, return an elf to your hand, untap target elf. Works out well if you're tapping them for mana. The other side of things is the Quirion Ranger, return a forest you control to your hand, untap target creature. You can only do that once a turn, though, so there is this little aspect. There we go, Heritage Druid. That's what we need here to now start really popping off and generating a lot of mana this turn. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
respond? I can't cast it anyways. Never mind.
Punishing Fire's in the graveyard, so we did our turn to dredge, play Life the Loam, get back, activate Thespian Stage, so we don't have any burn to stop us here. So now we've got 3 green getting generated off of these 2. No, I mean, killing the Nettle Sentinel was great because things would get even more out of hand. But so we're seeing there's the 3 taps. Boom, boom, boom. Turn the Visionary to activate our Wirewood Symbiote, returning an elf to our hand, untap target creature. You can only do that once a turn, so he says I'm going to turn it upside down to indicate that I've already used this ability. One green floating because we recast our Visionary. Our elf player says, I think I might be able to kill you here, which we're going to see. We're going to go through these lines and see if there's a line that lets that happen. Yeah, another Wirewood Symbiote getting played. Haven't played a land yet this turn. So going through and saying, hey, our Allosaurus is able to attack. The rest is not going to be able to attack. Like, especially keeping back the Quarren Ranger there, it's like, yeah, we're going to use that ability. We're not going to be doing it. So there's the 3, tapping 3. Turning a forest because everything's a forest. Ooh, there's a natural order. Sack a green creature, search for a green creature card, put it onto the battlefield. So in this case, you could be going for the Craterhoof, but with only one creature really able to attack, that's not going to be enough to really be able to kill our opponent here. We're counting out and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That'll be the 6th creature. Yeah, so now it's like the math check question here. It's like, okay, I have a Dryad Arbor. So, yeah, he's like, let me play this and just math this out real quick to see if this is the right pick. Because, again, we're teaching players Legacy. If you were playing it in a competitive event or tournament, you can't sequence it and do it in this order. But, hey, we're teaching. We're learning how to play Legacy here. So now it's like, let's math it and see. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Creatures get +7. He goes, that's still not lethal. So Dryad Arbor probably isn't the right choice. Maybe let's get a different pick here. Yeah, so there he says, no, let's take that back. The math does not work out for that to be the kill. So he looks and says, all right, Grist, but Marillage is indestructible. We can't use Grist. Atraxa, though. Grand Unifier, Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink. The additional text on there isn't as relevant, like the Death Touch aspect of it, but the Lifelink can be relevant for at least us having a way to block one attack and buy ourselves a time to kill our opponent next turn after that. The additional text that is at the bottom, hey, when it enters the battlefield, you reveal the top 10 cards of your library. Then you're going to, for each type, you can put a card of that type into your hand. So that means, hey, if you get a land, if you get a creature, if you get an instant, a sorcery, an enchantment, an artifact, all those goodies, you get to pick like one of each of those types. So let's see what we get. Instant, sorcery. Yep, Gaia's Cradle, that makes sense. Ooh, going for the Craterhoof here. I mean, there's a natural order. Like, there is something to be said about taking natural order and putting Craterhoof back as a potential line, especially with the Gaia's Cradle, right? Because you could just be able to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's the Gaia's Cradle as our land. Add a green for each creature, so it gets you 6, which you could then. All right, so Glimpse of Nature, banned in Modern. Whenever you play a creature, okay, Collector Oof there. Just we're playing creature, we're drawing a card. Not as relevant. Our opponent can't activate their artifact though, so they can't use their diamond. But all right, little returning. We've activated that. Now, those are insects, so we can't really use them to help us off the Heritage Druid because we specifically have to tap an elf. But playing another one. 1, 2, 3. Oh, there's the announcement for the next round. There's the natural order. So, yeah, right? So it's like if we didn't get Craterhoof, we could be able to try to win here. And swing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 creatures. Attracts. Okay, so we get Endurance to shuffle away the graveyard and have a blocker for it. So yeah, very cool to see at least a little glimpse of what Legacy was like. awesome to kind of add that in. I was debating about splitting it up and doing it as a separate episode, but I figured let's add it into this one. That was a quick round. So hope you guys enjoyed the content. Remember, every Monday and Thursday, we're going to be bringing you guys more modern action. So make sure you're subscribing, spreading the word, all that kind of good stuff. But that's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching, and I'll see you all next game.